everybody. Welcome back to Chat and Mall Movie Hour. We are finally back with Nightmare on Elm Street, the saga, and we are back with my personal favorite. Yes, it's controversial, but it's my favorite, Freddy's Revenge. And I just
Part two.
Part two. Yeah, I've been waiting for this for a minute. So we're rocking our merch, and
Yes.
we're ready. So.
Yes.
Cheers. It's Freddy Krueger time.
Cheers. I like your shirt, and I like that my shirt has this little piece at the bottom that says
Better stay up late.
Yeah, better stay up late. Which is just a random little touch that they didn't really have to do, but I'm glad that they did. I'm here for it.
All about the deets.
Yes. Well, and I have show and tell. I brought somebody along for our movie hour.
Is that Daddy?
Yes. Yes.
Oh my God.
So you can see him through the window, but this is a 1/4 scale Freddy. I'm scared to open it because it's never really been opened.
Don't hurt Daddy, but he looks like how I feel.
Why is that?
2020, baby.
Yes. Okay, so I'm opening the window.
Yes.
And it's hard to see it, right? But
no, we can see. Yes. He's very
okay, perfect.
1428 Elm, yes. You said it's a 1/4 scale?
Yes. So 1/4 scale of his actual height. And it has real clothes and all that shit and extra heads, and it happens to be Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So see the two there?
It's a very particular Freddy too.
It is. So this is that movie, which is why I brought it to this movie hour. But it's pretty much my favorite thing I own. I own a miniature little mini-me Freddy. And I just love it.
The manufacturer, the toy maker of that?
This is NECA.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yes, I had to double check, but yes, it is NECA.
That's amazing.
I'm Team NECA, as you know.
Yes, and I'll link your Chad Skeeger's Alien channel in the description. He's been recently doing some pretty epic unboxing of NECA anniversary Alien toys that are coming out. So please check those out. I'll link it in the description. Yeah, NECA's not messing around.
And if you guys have not seen it, there is an amazing documentary that we will be pulling from for this movie hour called Never Sleep Again. It's on Shudder right now. If you have Shudder, if you don't have Shudder, you can get a free trial and watch it. And it's worth signing up for a free trial because this is 238 minutes long. So it's an amazing deep dive into the whole franchise. I had to give it a shout out.
I need to say that Chad always comes correct with the documentary, the best BTS documentaries. He introduced me to Memory, which is the making of Alien, and Never Sleep Again, whether or not you're truly invested in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, is one of the best documentaries about how a film gets made and just the mythology around a franchise. It's absolutely extraordinary, and I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, I love the amount of people that they were able to get. Almost everyone from each film came back, all the main cast. Not that they're so busy or anything, but I mean, they but it's just awesome how they were able to get almost everybody. They didn't get Johnny Depp, but that's okay.
In retrospect, I know that's kind of but in retrospect, it's kind of the best thing because he was already, I think, by the time Freddy's Revenge had come out, which was 1980. Where are we? 1980. What year? Where am I?
I haven't done it. I haven't done my refreshers before this.
1985. Mama was 3 years old. By this time, though, Johnny Depp.
Madonna was on tour with the Virgin Tour.
Okay, there's your context. And I think Johnny was already working on 21 Jump Street. I think his star was already starting to rise. So, to have him would have probably been distracting. But
No,
no,
I don't think they would have had him in this film, but I just mean like for the behind the scenes doc, like bring him back for an interview. Yeah, one of those moments. But no, I'm glad that I kind of like, I like part two a lot too, actually. I'm so torn because like part of me like actually loves this film, even though I recognize it's not a good film
mhm.
necessarily in some ways.
Fred
But
characters.
like I grew up with the VHS of this. It really is the darkest film of all of them except for the first one, if you think about it. Because like after the first one, which was really dark, they kept the dark tone for this film, and then they kind of never really went back to it. Everything got a lot more jovial after that film, and with Freddy being more like a a funny guy with the one-liners.
Right.
Which I love that too. But I just like that this one is so dark, like with the gore and some of the stuff like that. Of course, it's the gay nightmare, so we'll get into that. There's also a documentary about this film called Scream Queen, like Scream, Queen, on Shudder that I would recommend as well, which is like a whole other bag of worms. But the guy that plays Jesse, Mark Patton, like created this documentary about his life story with this film. And it's very interesting. Like it is interesting. I never really, I guess as like a gay teenager, I didn't really think about it that much. But like looking back, you can really see it. Like especially in the age we live in now. And I think that in this new documentary, Scream Queen, they finally got the writer to admit for the first time ever that it was supposed to be, that it was legitimately there as subtext in his script.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was never supposed to be like found out really. He just thought it would be an interesting fodder for subtext, which it is. But yeah, I think it might be the one film in the whole franchise that's like a loner in a way.
Yeah. It does stand out. And who is it? Is it David Chaskin that's the screenwriter?
The writer, yep.
The writer.
Jack Shoulder wrote it, and
Okay. And
David, I mean directed it, I'm sorry, and David wrote it, yes.
because
And what is okay, so there's some lore about this film that we should say too,
you know,
where they initially started filming it with a different actor other than Robert Englund as Freddy.
right.
And they quickly realized from the screen test that he didn't embody any of the characteristics, that the movement was everything, and what a great actor Robert Englund is and how much he actually brought to it. They were just too dense to like know that until they actually started filming with this stunt actor as Freddy Krueger. And thank God they brought Robert Englund back, because that could have altered like the whole, if they didn't use him, he may never have been used again throughout the series. Who knows? Like there's an alternate universe out there somewhere where he only starred in the first one.
Where I don't want to exist. Yeah. And that's something you learn in Never Sleep Again, is that they originally started production with another actor as Freddy, and then they quickly realized that Robert Englund as Freddy was the franchise. And it's really
Right.
possible to imagine anyone else playing him. And just as an aside, when they did the remake in 2009 with Rooney Mara, and they cast Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy, which I thought was brilliant casting. If anybody was to have been cast as a new Freddy, I think Jackie Earle Haley did a great job. But it's impossible.
Yep.
And I mean, Robert Englund fans aside, we also have to reconcile with the fact that out of the trifecta, right, out of Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and Fred Krueger, Freddy's the only one that fucking talks. So you have to have somebody that's charismatic, excuse me, that
Yeah.
is, I mean, he's dead sexy, pun not intended. He's sexy, he's got swag, he's got charm. He's meant to be like seductive on purpose. He is a predator. And Robert Englund just kind of manages to do this magic trick where he toes the line
Uh,
between the pedophile that you love to love
yeah,
and like just this,
crazy.
I mean, prolific fandom around this predator. I mean,
Right.
who else could like do it, was like pull that off? I mean, it really is a bit of a miracle.
Right. And it's interesting because they show the footage of the other actor, and it's like so painfully obvious that he doesn't have, like, I think something that they failed to realize beyond the voice was like what a character study he had done with this character of Fred Krueger.
Mhm.
He had put so much into the body language of the character that I think they missed a lot of, because now you have a new director, a new writer. It's not Wes Craven coming back yet. And so I think a lot of that was lost on them. They thought, well, we'll just do whatever.
Right.
And yeah, but
It's, yeah, to your point, like it's something that, myself as a huge Robert Englund fan ever since I was, 3 years old, apparently. Um, you don't really get to appreciate what a character study he did until you watch Never Sleep Again, and you realize that along with Wes Craven, who is deeply philosophical, Robert Englund is too, and he even in
yes,
again says, I mean, this is referring, of course, to the original movie, but he says in Never Sleep Again, the entire premise of the movie is Nancy having a precognitive nightmare. And he understood like the sexuality of it and the predatory victim. Like he just understood what he was doing. And I think because he knew so deeply who Freddy Krueger was as a character, he was able to toe that line and
right.
on it. And I mean,
Yeah. And to your point, there is a lot of sexual subtext in Freddy. So it kind of makes sense to explore homosexuality in a sequel because of that, and just take it someplace else. But yeah, it is. I mean, if you think about it, he's basically a pedophile, and they never explicitly say that, and they always downplay that because it is controversial,
right.
and it is so, I guess, I mean, I don't know what word you would say, but it's not an audience pleaser. So
Definitely.
yeah, so it's kind of like a downer. So they really downplay that, but to me that's horrifying, right? And it's scary. And that's just like, it speaks to the depths of his evil, and that he's willing to go to all these extremely dark depths with that evil. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's for those that have committed themselves to the entire franchise and are like hardcore fans, it's interesting because they never really explicitly say it. The closest I think that they come to saying it out loud is in Freddy's Dead, where you meet his daughter and they have the flashback, and you do see him like in the flashback with these young kids. And also in the remake, you finally get to see the parents like come to exact justice. And also in
Mhm. Yeah.
Freddy's Nightmare, the first episode of the TV show, which we did a deep
Yeah.
dive on in our first Nightmare on Elm Street movie hour, which I'll link below. Um, they go very much in depth into Freddy's origin story, and you get the pedophile
Yeah.
aspect of it there too. But as far as the main six movies go, it's never really said out loud, and I think that's what makes it so scary, but also so
Yeah.
so like nuanced, because as an audience you're
Right.
drawn to him, you fanboy or fangirl over him, and you're like, but wait a second, but
Yeah.
wait a second. So it's kind of playing with empathy, and it's kind of playing with I don't know, it's kind of playing
Yeah.
where our limits are in terms of what we'll tolerate as an audience and as a society. I just think Wes Craven
Right.
and Robert Englund did something miraculous.
Right. And in the same way, like with Jaws and Alien, like the less you see, the more your imagination goes wild. It's like you don't have to say it or hold our hand with it. It's just there. And for me, it actually gives the parents a lot more, it lends like a lot more credence to what they did, like seeking him out and burning him alive, because
Yeah.
that's such a like a graphic act of rage. But it makes more sense when you realize that like how horrific his crimes against children
Yeah.
were, you know. So
The whole parental aspect of the franchise, where because the franchise is also very much like a treatise on like adolescence and rebellion and distrust of your authority, specifically parental figures. um, and again, they do it in such a beautifully subtle way, but the kids don't trust the parents because the parents are keeping this huge secret from them, which is Fred Krueger is a pedophile who's going to kill you in your sleep, but we burned him alive and you're safe now, but we don't talk about that. And so the kids inherently have this distrust. And so there's
yeah.
this kind of like us and them, and that doesn't serve anybody because ultimately everybody gets killed because there's no communication. And you see that in the in the first film with Nancy and her mother and the alcoholism, which we talked about. Like
Right.
there's this
And the broken marriage.
right.
And the broken marriage, which both probably stem back to Krueger, you know, and what they had to do and living with it. And of course, none of those parents thought that he would become a supernatural entity. But even when the kids start saying his name, they don't fess up to what they did. It's like they really hold back. They're just trying to, it's one of those things like if we never talk about it again, maybe it's like it never happened, you
Right.
know?
And that's worked out for human history so well. Um,
We don't learn.
no, we don't. Well, do you want to say anything about the fact that they did not ask Heather Langenkamp to be in the second film?
Oh yeah, that I don't forgive them for that. Okay. I'm obsessed with Heather Langenkamp, but this story was like they went somewhere else, which is fine. They flipped it, right? They did a male lead
Yeah.
and put him up against Freddy, which is interesting. I just think it's really interesting because usually it is a group of teens, but usually it's like the primary is a female.
Right.
So to flip that, and that speaks more to the subtext and stuff. But I just think that's interesting. Just go somewhere different with it, and yeah.
And you mentioned the documentary Scream Queen, and this in this movie, what's his name? The guy that plays the Jesse. What's the actor's name?
Mark Patton.
Mark Patton is the Scream Queen, and we know
Yeah.
that David Chaskin, the writer, admitted in Never Sleep Again that he did purposefully write gay subtext into this movie. And it's interesting that you get a male Scream Queen, which I
Yeah.
off the top of my head can't think of another male Scream Queen, right?
Right.
Um, and being older and watching part two, it is gay as the day is long.
AF. Yeah.
But as a
It
kid
is.
or whatever, I didn't pick any of that up, when I was
Right.
however old.
Neither did I, even though I was a youth. I didn't pick it up.
But it's like it is a movie. It's like the exception to the rule in regards to the rest of the franchise, to your point. Like it offers no value to the mythology, honestly. It does not advance the story forward in any way. It's just like this appendix over here. But
Yeah.
the reason why it's my favorite is because it's the one I remember the most vividly and the one that acts as like the biggest time machine for me, to where when I watch it, I'm 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old Mel again every time I watch it
Right.
at my mom's house, and I'm transported. And I also think it's the scariest.
Yeah, if you like dark films, this one, the first one, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare are probably the darkest ones in the franchise. And yeah, I mean the scene where, just to mention a few scenes off the top of my head, the scene where, you know, Freddy literally like comes through his flesh and like claws his way out of him. And it's pretty graphic. The scene with like where his tongue becomes like Freddy's tongue is like so next level. There's just a lot going on. Random shout out to the Kate Bush poster, because Kate Bush is my favorite artist as a musician, and I was like, I spotted the poster on the back of his door for Kate Bush, and I think that was one of the gay subtext things that they put in there, along with the game Probe, which is in his closet. So there's a few things, but I just love Kate Bush so much. So I just had to say, you know, any time that she is seen or comes up, I like lose my mind. Like when I saw that, I didn't notice it as a kid, but then when I got more into Kate Bush as like a teenager and went back and rewatched this film, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's amazing.
And what's great
You
about
know,
Bush is a lot of her songwriting is harkens back to film references, and she will tell stories around, or her albums will tell
yes,
stories around film mythologies too.
that's a great point. Yeah, she's explored The Shining in one of her songs. Tons of great films that we love. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, I want to just say like the just circle back to the probe game in Jesse's closet. Like the tagline on the box says "No chicks allowed," which is
Oh
just
my God!
you. I mean, this isn't even
Wow.
text. This is just text in like
Yes.
old like 22 font. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's not even. It's pretty.
Yeah.
And what was just a tidbit that makes this even gayer, which you learn from Never Sleep Again, is that Brad Pitt, who, if you know Mel, Brad Pitt is the love of my life, and Mario Lopez, who played obviously AC Slater, both auditioned for the role of Jesse and got turned down, and Mark Patton got it. And
That's amazing to think about. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, how could you, like, if you're a casting director and all those actors walk in, like, how could you not choose like Brad Pitt? I don't know, but
well, he wasn't Brad Pitt back then. He was, just like Johnny Depp wasn't Johnny Depp back then. It would have been like,
yeah. Well, we got Johnny Depp. I was gonna say that for the first one, and so,
I really,
but
really
yeah,
like Mark Patton. I think he's a really good actor, and I think as
yeah.
shitty as
Well,
the movie is, he does an extraordinary job.
yeah, and I think that they used the fact that I think they knew he was gay, and he wasn't open at the time, but they knew that he was. So I think they used that to their advantage to kind of pull out some of that subtext. For example, there's a scene where he dances around his bedroom, which was not choreographed, and basically they just wanted him to bring his own moves, aka like gay it up. And he does this adorable dance and pops the little pop thing. He's
Wow.
pushing the thing in with his butt,
But you know what that is, though?
pushing the door in.
It goes back to this movie's actually brilliant, okay? And anyone that wants to say otherwise can just whatever. We'll have words separately offline, but this movie's actually brilliant because going back to the screen king, if you will, like thing, we have a male scream queen, and we you always get this scene in any movie where there's a female protagonist before bad shit happens. She's always dancing in her room alone. Like
Right.
that is a classic scene.
Yes,
And now we have
I agree with you. I think it was a stroke of genius to flip it and make it a male. That is a stroke of genius. Yes.
but like when you get to stuff like the locker room scenes and the scenes with the coach and they're slapping each other's asses with towels, it's not even homoerotic. It's basically just like and only
Yeah.
gay porn section of the website.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So what do you think? Okay, so we talked about what works in this film. What do you think doesn't work or misses the mark? Because Wes Craven said that what he really resented that they did, because the first film was his baby.
mhm.
That when he saw what they did with this one was that they brought him out during like a pool party. So
Right.
he was no longer in the dream realm. I'm not sure if I agree with this or not, actually. We can debate it, but or discuss it. But yeah, he says that when he comes out during the pool party, he's like humanized and he's no longer the scary supernatural dream figure. He's more of just a guy that you see he's not super tall, he's not super scary, he's not hiding in the shadows anymore. But that never bothered me personally, because it kind of it's kind of like a bridge between who Freddy is in the first film and then who the like cartoon character he becomes in all the subsequent films.
Yes. So I think as to whether or not, as to what works and what doesn't work, I mean, the only thing that doesn't work for me in this movie is just that the movie's very short, and it's not a good movie. But in terms of what doesn't work inside of the mythology, knowing that this was a sequel, you have to cut it some slack, because most sequels suck, and this is
Yeah,
a sequel. It's like I said earlier, it's kind of this other thing. But
right.
in terms of them bringing Freddy like out of the dream world and also into the light where you can really see him, and it's not like that Jaws that you only see once, or the xenomorph that you only see once. Like we see him now. So that to me doesn't make him less scary. I still think this is the scariest, not that any of them are scary, but this is the scariest of the six canonical
You
films.
don't think the first one is scarier than this one?
I think the first one is more graphic, but I think there is something about this movie that I just find
It's
very
more insidious, you think?
creepy. And it to your question, I don't know if there's an answer, because he is brought out into the light, but well, maybe this is an answer. So this movie, one of the reasons, in my opinion, that it's kind of like it has to be put over here, is because it's not just that Freddy's brought into the light and he's running around killing teenagers at a pool party. It's also the fact that a, this movie's like about possession. Jesse is physically possessed. His body is overtaken by Freddy, which never happens again in any of the other movies. And correct me,
That's true.
but Freddy actually comes out of the dream realm and is able to walk around because he's possessing Jesse's body. And as such, it's Jesse really doing, physically moving around and doing the murdering as Freddy. And so this movie has a whole different like mythology and message to it around possession and transformation. And
Right.
so to me, that's what makes it scary, is that Jesse has no control. It's another form of rape in a way, because he's being
Right.
penetrated from the inside out, and he has no control. I mean, he's trying to get with this girl the whole movie, and he can't do it because
Is he?
and he's gay.
Is he?
And he's gay.
Or is he trying to get with his cute friend?
I think
Dark,
he's trying to get with his cute
dark,
friend. Yeah.
dark and handsome.
He's trying to play a round of probe. And also, like, are we not going to talk about the really creepy, really upsetting sexual predatory tension between the coach and Jesse? Like, that shit is.
Oh yeah, that didn't age well.
I'm trying to take off my 2020 glasses, but that shit's like really like calm down.
Yeah. Yeah, but a lot of people experience shit like that, which is crazy. Hopefully that's lessened because people are more aware. So that gives people pause before they think they can act that way. But shit like that's still going on, and it's crazy. I love everything you just said. Like, I love that you're hitting on possession, I have to give a shout out to a movie I just saw called Possessed, directed by David Cronenberg's son, Brandon Cronenberg. And I thought it was a good film, and I just love anything that explores possession like that. I don't know why it hasn't been explored more in cinema, actually, because I can only think of like a handful of films that have done it well. But Mark Patton in this film is a really good actor, actually. Like when he's panicking in the film, because he is, like you said, being taken advantage of in that way from like the inside out and being possessed, like you feel it. It's so visceral, and his portrayal is so like believable, and so he does a great job in some of those scenes for sure. And if you watch it, you know, 5 or 10 years after it was made, when people are much more having much more open conversations about homosexuality, you can frame a lot of the stuff in the film as what it's like to be like a gay teen coming out, or dealing with like an unsavory character like that coach who's totally closeted, but actually doing totally inappropriate things because he's angry about having to, that he is gay, and all this crazy shit that happens, and actually just being possessed of being gay, like that in and of itself, something you don't want, because all of society is frowning down on you, especially in the 80s and the 90s, for even being gay, like the how that must feel. So yeah.
Yeah, amen. I was gonna say like I can't. It would be so interesting to interview the writer. What's his name? David Chaskin now. I mean, Never Sleep Again is not super old. It's a fairly recent documentary, but it'd be interesting to interview him again in light of the past couple of years. Um, it's almost like the conversation we were having about Orson Welles, and I'm not trying to compare David Chaskin to Orson Welles, and I'm just saying like how
Love it.
aware was this
Right.
artist of what he was writing and depicting, because yeah, I mean, so much of the franchise is about the horror of adolescence in high school, and add to that being a LGBTQ person, being an outcast of any kind, but specifically like being queer, and like being in a position where you're not comfortable with that, and you are possessed by this thing that you're not able to get to exercise. And how aware was he of that subtext, because that's
Yeah.
all there.
And how good it is his honesty and memory, because like over the years things morph, and it's almost like, well, how much was I really aware of? And you
Right.
know, now he can, hindsight now he can take credit for a genius screenplay, but at the time no one was calling a genius for sure. So who knows how much of that was accident or intentional. I definitely think at least some of it was right on, like intentional subtext, you know. But
The name of the best friend, the guy best friend, the homoerotic moments, what was his name, the character?
I am going to tell you in just 1 second. Ron Grady.
Ron. Okay, because there's a scene, and I forget when it happens. It's somewhere in the second act where Jesse has already been possessed once or twice by Freddy, and he's freaking out, and he's saying to Ron, "quote Something is like." There, he's trying to like get him to go somewhere, and he says, "quote Something is trying to get inside of my body, and you want to sleep where?" And it's just kind of
Yeah.
comedic, like throwaway line, but it's also like nobody's listening to Jesse. Jesse is like, "Help me." And I
Right.
goes back to why I find this movie so scary, is a credit to Mark Patton's acting, because you
Yeah.
feel how terrified he is every step of the way, and there's nothing he can do. It's not just like he can stay awake anymore. Freddy is out of the fucking dream realm here, folks. Like Freddy is in his
Yes.
happy. There is no dose. There is no coffee. There is no Johnny Depp is going to stay awake and watch you sleep until he doesn't, you die. It's you're on your own. It's
I'm really coming to think of this film as a masterpiece now.
yeah.
You're really winning me over. Yeah. And by the way, can we just recreate the best friend's 80s bedroom like in my house?
Please, yeah.
Please, can for my bedroom.
Yes.
Like the wallpaper, the sheets on the bed, like the posters, just
We have to do
everything, the furniture.
when we film Dream Warriors, we have to make a set. Yes.
It's so great. It's the best like 80s bedroom I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, and they just had to make his best friend like super good looking, right? Like, come on.
He is smoldering. He is smoldering. And in Never Sleep Again, I think they're talking about David Chaskin, the writer, but they say that somebody that was either producing or maybe it was even the director. But they talk about somebody not paying close attention to the like making this movie because they were also working on Aliens in production. Do you remember this?
I do vaguely, but I think it was it's definitely not the director. I think it was like the special effects people.
Okay.
Yeah, who are creating the like the gore and the effects.
Can we talk about the special effects in this movie? Because I fucking love them.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think they're pretty good, actually. I really do.
Oh man.
When you see the eye, like when you look through the body, or no, that someone opens their mouth and you see an eye in the back of the mouth.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the whole pool party scene, like when he's going up the stairs and the stairs turn to like quicksand, that I think that also happened in part one. Like that was very terrifying to me.
Definitely happened in part one. I don't even remember it in part two. Really?
Unless I'm conflating it. I don't know. I have it in my notes, but I might be conflating it. But the whole pool
Oh,
party,
it might have been like toward the end when they're in the whole
the refinery.
like refinery set. I was gonna say refinery too. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I just found the pool party very scary.
Yeah. With that set at the end, it's like that they took the boiler room, which is a relatively like smaller room, and like exploded it, which is so cool. But it has the same feel. It has that same exact feel.
The same.
You know what's great? You know what's great about a sequel? Yeah, oftentimes they fail, but you have a lot of creative freedom on a sequel because not a lot has been established yet in like sequential films. So you can take it in almost any direction you want to take it. Whereas like if you're 3-4 films in, it's a little more locked down.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting that there's a certain creative freedom there. Yeah.
Could we talk about Lisa for a second? So
You mean Meryl Streep?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So she is the love interest of our very, 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 very
Careful.
gay, of our very gay Green King. And she is also like a feminist hero to me because she is the one person that is kind of quasi listening to what Jesse is saying and is also she's the one in the third act when she kind of clues into like the how serious shit is. She's the one that says to him, I'm paraphrasing here, but she's saying to him, like, the only way you're going to exorcise Freddy from your body is to stop being afraid of him. He's feeding off of your fear. She's the one that's like feeding him like the wisdom that he needs to confront his demon. And her scene at the refinery with the telephone, tell me when you're ready to talk about it because it's one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema.
Well, let me play devil's advocate because don't you think that as a woman in this role, she's really reduced in some ways? Because like, you know how a lot of gay teens especially when gay teens weren't out, because now gay teens are out. But when I was growing up, gay teens were not out. But we, I want to say we. I'm not gonna incriminate myself. But a lot of gay men had like a girlfriend, for lack of a better word, that was maybe not really a real love interest, and that's what this could be, is like, where they're sort of led on, unfortunately, and it's a terrible thing that can happen, where they fall in love with a gay man, and the gay man doesn't have the wisdom or the foresight to say, you don't want to fall in love with me, it's not going to work out, or doesn't know how to say that, or doesn't know themselves yet, and it's a whole area. But there's some of that happening here. She's kind of reduced as like this secondary character, and I don't know. She's strong in it, though. She brings a lot of strength to the role. I feel like another actress could have made it a much more throwawayable type of role. Throwawayable. You get me?
Return.
Yeah, it could have been much more of a throwaway role in someone else's hands. She did a good job.
When I was calling her a feminist icon, that was my excitement for the overall film talking.
Yeah.
But just like her voice as being kind of the only voice of reason in the film. But yeah,
That's a good point.
is the stereotypical. I mean, she's not even a beard, because she's not. Neither of them. He's not gay, and she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
She's definitely the girl that is in love with the wrong guy, and that is a whole nother thing. Is like the closeted gay guy, or even the out gay guy, who has, the girl that falls in love with him, because that happens. I mean, gay men give things to women that they can't get anywhere else, and we have a tendency to hold on for that shit, for dear life, even if it's toxic and not going to end well. But
right.
I just think that it's interesting, just like the gender role reversals in the movie, and
yes, so great.
And at the end,
yeah, because there are a lot of like dumb guys in this series too. Like, not that she's a dumb girl, but she's definitely very like the B-roll, and he's the star. So she's playing to him in the film. Whereas usually there are a lot of guys that are more like the disposable, playing to the female lead in the series.
And they kind of did that, I feel like, in the first one too, with what's his face, like the leather jacket wearing guy who died in a prison cell, after killing his girlfriend. He was kind of like not a douchebag, but he like they dressed him as one. He kind of was just like, hey, like, and even with Johnny Depp, he was the jock, but he was also like super sensitive and super, I don't know, maybe whatever. Maybe that's
that guy that went to jail in the first film, his name was Nick Corey. In real life, that wasn't his name, but that was like his stage name. But he said in Never Sleep Again that not to go off on a tangent on the first film, but I always think about how he said that he was like high AF during that scene. And like, he's like, I learned the hard way, like, never do that on a film or whatever. But he's great in this scene, and like, you don't pick up on it, so like, whatever.
Oh yeah, I mean, that whole scene in the first movie, the very first killing scene with his girlfriend, I mean, that's one of the most extraordinary kills.
That is, that's one of my top. That's probably like my top scene of like the whole franchise. Like, it's just in terms of like a death scene or like gore, it's just so like innovative and over the top for a low budget film to build that set that rotates, and just the way it's done and edited is just so well done.
Yeah.
Yes. But back to the second one.
I like the final like moments of the movie when they get to the refinery, which the whole boiler room mood, moment, aesthetic, whatever the kids are calling it these days, that like follows the entire franchise, I just love. And it was really nice to see in part 2 that it got expanded. But the whole scene where she is at the refinery and she's, running across these like rafters or scaffolding or whatever they are.
Yeah.
She finally like catches up with Jesse, but he's Freddy. And you see like this moment of vulnerability from like Freddy, but because it's really Jesse. And it's just like this really great depiction of like possession and of transformation and of like the whole just kind of like cocoon metaphor and the phone,
Mm.
the tongue, just the kiss scene.
Yeah.
The kiss scene, like, is one of my low key but very high key sexual fantasies that has stuck with me apparently since I was 3 years old. I find that scene deeply erotic, and I also find it deeply
Wow.
terrifying, and I just
Yes.
love it.
It's
And
amazing.
it's only when she says to him like, you have to stop being afraid of him, that he gains his power back over Freddy. I mean, it's just
Mm.
and it's a kiss. She has to kiss Freddy Krueger. She has to French kiss Daddy, and that is what sets Jessie free. I mean, she's making a sacrifice. She took one for the team.
So good. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they started to introduce some like colors like around the boiler room, like green, like some like fill light that was, those neon unique colors, which you see a lot for the rest of the franchise. So that goes back to my point that this film is like such a bridge between that first iconic dark horror film and what Freddy would become in all the following films. I just think it's such a midpoint, stylistically.
Yeah, it's been like a couple of months since I've seen it. I'd have to rewatch that scene to remember that, but
You didn't watch it for this?
listen, I rewatched it like before we were supposed
I
to.
didn't either. No, I didn't either.
And then COVID happened, and a lot.
Yes.
No, it's
We
been.
should watch it after our
Oh, I'm going to.
review.
Now I really want to watch it again. But
Yes, me too.
it reminds me though of like the intentional choice, which they talk about in Never Sleep Again, to make Freddy's sweater red and green because it disrupts. It's like a disruptive pattern. It's not something that's
Mm-hmm.
on the eye. And I mean, but then Christmas, everyone loves Christmas. I don't know, but like particularly like the green and red
Yeah.
is disruptive to the eye, and so it
Right.
grabs your attention.
The hardest colors to see side by side.
Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
fun.
and
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I wish I was more of a study on how, like, subtly his makeup changed, because I know that I think there was a new makeup artist that came on for this that stayed on the rest of the franchise, or maybe I'm wrong. But there were some subtle changes, like his eyes became red, like he got red contacts, I believe was one of them.
Because isn't in Never Sleep Again, don't they say that the original, well, Wes Craven was eating pizza and like he got like the aesthetic for Freddy's burns from pizza, or was it the makeup artist that was eating pizza?
It was the makeup artist, yeah. I think Kevin Yeager.
That's not the same makeup artist from this and the rest of the franchise, is what you're saying.
Right. Kevin Yeager is the special effects guy known for Freddy Krueger's makeup. He did I'm just looking it up now because I want it to be accurate.
Because it gets less pizza-y and more like.
He did part 2, so he's the one that did part 2, Kevin Yeager. So I think he took over for someone from part 1, and he changed it a little bit, and he made it more of that like pizza where you see like kind of see through it.
Yeah.
And you see the different things, like the different levels of texture.
Yeah, because by the time you get to like the latter franchises, by the time you get to the latter movies of the franchise, specifically when you get to New Nightmare. It's the makeup in New Nightmare is horrible. Um, but
Yeah,
it
it's not the best, but I love that film.
oh, the film's amazing. But I mean,
Yeah.
his burn marks go from like, I don't know, cartoonish to then they try and make it look real, and then it somehow looks more silly. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, like they tried to give him a lot more bone structure in New Nightmare and more of a hook nose, bigger cheekbones and jaw and stuff. Yeah.
wasn't here for it. And then by the time you get
Yeah.
to Jackie Earl Haley, they really tried to make it look real, and it just was like, sorry, we're not here for that.
And yet in Citizen Kane, the old age makeup is perfect in 1941.
Iconic, yeah.
Like they did like 42 different old age makeups in that movie. All of them were like 100% spot on.
So impressive. Oh my god, I'm thinking of Jedediah right now. It's funny because in Never Sleep Again, Wes Craven talks about part two as being, quote, not having a unity to it, just a bunch of scenes.
He's
And
a hater.
sir, I would disagree.
Yeah. You're talking Wes Craven said that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this film followed up his work. So I feel like he has that unique relationship with it because of that. And maybe it's hard for him to see it fully objectively, like
Yeah.
you or I would. Um, it's just different. It went in a different direction. And I think had he done it, it would have been a lot more true to the spirit of the original, which would have been fantastic as well. But there's a great creative freedom here, which is nice, I think.
Yeah. And I
And the exploratory nature of switching the roles and the genders and all that stuff, I think is really good for this film.
yeah, I mean, in every subsequent film, I mean, we either see Nancy return or his daughter or Rooney Mara's character in the remake, and God only knows what happens when they redo it again. But I mean, it's always a female that
Hmm.
is the protagonist, and it's just interesting to see
Yeah,
victimization and things like victimization, rape, penetration, things that are not typically associated with female victimization, but you certainly hear about the female experience of being victimized in those ways more in
right.
art. And it's interesting to see it on the other end because that is male, the male gender experiences those same things. And somebody like Ridley
Yeah,
Scott who teases the whole role reversal, excuse me, the whole gender reversal, with male rape and male penetration via an alien. So it's just really
yes,
interesting to see writers and directors play with that gender, that reversal, in my opinion.
yes. I was so going to mention Alien. You took the words right out of my mouth, and it's very interesting to see like how it's tried and when it works with American audiences or European audiences, or how it works in different markets, or when it doesn't work. And like this in this film, it didn't really work, but you wonder why, because it was so upfront,
Right.
and men were probably just totally creeped out by that. But at the same time, it's interesting to see it tried, I think. And it's weird as a culture to look at horror films, which we love so much, and realize that it's always the female is always the victim. And it's just wild and crazy. And it's like, why is that so popular? A woman in that kind of peril is just, why does it always have to be a woman to play to the biggest box office type of thing?
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
and then you get stuck in the tropes, right? Like you get stuck with even Ridley Scott returning to his own original art and feeling, well, I'm not going to speak to how he feels, but as an audience and a fan, it feels like he's beholden to this strong uh, Ripley. It has to be a female protagonist.
Yeah.
You get these facsimiles that never live up to the original, and it feels forced. or just
Yeah.
race. You know, sometimes you feel
And
like
they,
people of color are being put into characters just to say, hey, we have a person of color represented, where it may not
yeah,
make sense.
check the box.
It feels forced, and like nobody's buying into it, and it's just everybody can be victimized, and everybody can be terrorized and horrified, and everybody can also be the hero. And it's, I understand
Right.
why, but and as a woman and as a feminist, it's always exciting to see a badass, you know, bitch take control. But sometimes it's just like it's tiresome because it feels
Yes.
forced.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what makes you love those stand-up characters. Like I'm thinking of Night of the Living Dead, the very original, where you had that black lead, that strong black lead character who was so excellent,
Oh my
and
god.
it just makes you wonder, like, well, what's wrong with doing a little bit of? It's more realistic if it's not always the same thing. I mean, it's more like real life, so it's not that it's like pandering to the society now being more woke or whatever. It's like, no, that is how it would really be. Like anyone can be the hero in real life in situations like you said. But yes, I love those films where you have like a really strong black lead, like in Candyman too as well. um
I'm
Warts and all, but
nervous but excited.
yeah, yeah, Candyman. So I'm here for it 100%. But yeah.
I think with regards to Freddy's Revenge, I think like it's also kind of a perfect title because I think they all have amazing titles. Dream Warrior is probably the best title. But I think Freddy's Revenge is really fitting for the sequel because it's really the moment in all of the franchise, the canonical franchise, like which I'm gonna go with the first 6 films and New Nightmares being canonical, and then that other shit, we're just gonna put it over here. But most
Yes.
people would say part 2, Freddy's Revenge, does not fit into the canon. I'm going to make the opposite argument again. And because it's titled as such, we really do see that in this movie. Like he is so flippin' freaking pissed off at what happened in part 1 that he said, I'm leaving the dream realm, bitches. I'm coming to the conscious, I'm coming to your consciousness. No more subconscious, no more unconscious. Daddy is here. And not only that, I'm going to invade your body and I'm going to make you do things that are, and like he is exacting his revenge. And how else would he
Right.
successfully do that if he hadn't left the dream world? And the
Yeah.
end of the movie, because you know how every movie in the franchise ends with a dream.
Right.
This one was particularly disturbing to me. Do you want to talk about the bus ride at the end of the film?
Oh yeah. And wait, isn't there a bus ride at the beginning and the end?
Yeah. The beginning,
Yeah, I like
he's dreaming too. Yeah.
he's dreaming and they drive off a cliff and they end up like on a plateau, like a very steep plateau, and the bus is like they have to like run to the back of the bus to like level it, right? That is such a great, like that's such a typical dream that you would have, you know?
And
I
it's
love that.
too because he's having similar experiences to what Nancy experienced dream-wise in part 1. And don't they find Nancy's journal in part 2?
Yes.
And they're using
Yeah.
it as reference to figure out what the hell's that was kind of
You
awful.
know what? I may be reaching here, but I just thought of this. So in his dream, which is his subconscious, he's on a bus which is driven off a cliff and is now like stranded on a plateau and on a very steep cliff, and he is in the bus with only 2 other students, I think, and they're both female.
At the, oh,
So it's like a female energy, including him.
okay.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching, but I just think that's very interesting.
Reach. We need reaching here. I need to
You
rewatch it.
know? And then Freddy, with his masculine energy, who's the driver of the bus, comes for them. You know what I mean? And it's a whole thing.
No, it does, but it's interesting though because when he has the same dream at the end of the movie and he's back on the bus, he Freddy ends up killing one of the girls. He like penetrates
Yeah.
through the back of the seat and like
Right.
a whole chest burster moment.
Yes. Yeah, and it's interesting that he is always talking with females. Like he's always has friends that are girls. He's not like growing it up in the movie.
That's right. He is.
So that's another like gay thread there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he is always with girls, except when he's only like really with Ray when they're one on one too.
Oh, yeah.
Or like,
That's true.
yeah,
That's true. They're not together that often. I mean, he's never with like a group of guys. It's
no,
only that one guy,
yeah,
which
no,
further like underlines that maybe it's like a love interest and not just like a friend. Because usually guys do stuff in groups in films like that.
right. It would be interesting to have interviewed an audience coming out of the theater in 1985 and be like, was this gay as fuck to you, or like?
I think they would say no. I think they were just along for the ride, and I think they were into like whatever thrills the film threw at them, but I don't think they were analyzing it like that, which is interesting. We certainly weren't when we were younger,
But do
but
you think like adult gay men who were like out and saw that movie when it came out were like, holy shit, this is like gay?
possibly.
Like,
I think some of them definitely, possibly. I mean, how could you not like read into it a little bit? Yeah.
man, probe. Come on.
What else is there to say about this film?
Um, God. The only thing that I wanted to say is that I love the ending. I love that she kisses Freddy Krueger. And that I just want to say, like, this is just now coming to me, but that plays on like the kind of Princess and the Frog, like
Yes, I was
fairy
just
tale.
thinking that.
Like this is okay, good, because this is just now coming to me, but like that's kind of like that like a subversion of that fairy tale moment, right? Where because she
Yes.
kisses the monster and then he turns back into the prince.
Oh, we're going so deep on Nightmare 2. I love it.
And he'll never be able to fulfill her in the way she needs, nor she him. But
Right.
still, like she kisses the monster and
Mm.
fairy dust, pixie dust, boom, she gets a prince.
It's like a fairy tale trope there's lots of fairy tale tropes. Like New Nightmare is all about like Hansel and Gretel with the breadcrumbs and all that stuff. So there's a lot of like dark those tales, like the Brothers Grimm stuff, all that stuff is like dark AF. And like if you really read it and it's not done through like a little cartoon or whatever, it's so dark and twisted.
It really is like not Eastern, European folklore and fairy tales is some of the darkest shit you'll ever read. And
Love it.
kudos kudos to Disney for Disneyfying it all, but the real shit is really amazing and hardcore and dark. But it's certainly something we should explore when we do our Disney.
Yes. Have you seen the Snow White with Sigourney Weaver?
The one that you were. Wait, what? That's not the
There's
one.
a live action Snow White that's dark, that's true to like the darkness of it all, and it's starring Sigourney Weaver as the evil queen.
No, I have not.
Okay,
Right.
fix your life.
Okay. This is the one that you sent me, right?
I don't know if I sent it. No, that's a different one. That's a different one. The one I sent you recently was Canon Tales. So Canon did it, they weren't dark, but they were like more realistic versions of all those tales.
Okay.
And they did a Hansel and Gretel, Canon's Hansel and Gretel in '87, which is really good with Cloris Leachman as the witch, which is everything. Yes. If you haven't seen that, Fix Your Life, watch that.
All
it's
right,
amazing.
So I'm gonna fix my life with this.
But this is a different one. This is like a Showtime film that's darker, way darker. And Sigourney Weaver is incredible incredible in this film.
All right, it's on the to-do list. I only want to say this about the movie, which is I think that if you're a hater of part two, rewatch it. It's really fucking good. And
Yeah.
in Never Sleep Again, there's this quote where they're interviewing Mark Patton. And this quote's going to be a little out of context because I don't even remember like what came right before or right after. But Mark Patton says, quote, sex meant nothing. And he's talking about Freddy, the character, obviously. He said, sex meant nothing to Freddy. My character, Jesse, was just a vehicle for him to move through. And I think they were asking him about the gay
Wow.
subtext. I think that's the context in which that quote came from. But that's such an interesting thing, just kind of to bring it back to the beginning of the conversation and close us out about Freddy Krueger as a character is so nuanced and layered and delicious and textured and horrifying.
Yeah.
And just for Mark Patton to even say something like that as an actor, to acknowledge that
Yeah. It's really good.
Freddy as a character wasn't trying to sexually violate him. He was literally using his body as a vehicle to exact his revenge. And that Freddy, and so that leads me to like Freddy Krueger isn't like a sexual predator. He is, but he's not a sexual being. He's a
Yeah, when he goes to the supernatural side,
yeah. I don't
it
know.
goes beyond that, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
There's something beyond that that's even more evil somehow. Yeah.
yes. Okay, thank you. Because he was only a pedophile when he was alive. Uh,
Right.
not saying like that's okay. I'm just saying he was a pedophile when he was human, and that's horrifying
Yeah.
enough. But when he transcends, when he becomes Freddy, he is this horrifying, non-sexual, just
Entity.
entity.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still very rapey because he's penetrating your dreams. He's penetrating your subconscious. He's
Right.
coming through in that.
Like
It's not a non-sexual, literal.
right.
Non-sexual.
He as a demonic entity, he is willing to go there and use sexuality to terrify you or manipulate you, but he doesn't need it to get off.
Right.
That's a good distinction, I think, because he is a supernatural being at that point. He's not going to be lured by it or seduced. He is the ultimate seducer or rapist, or however you want to look at it. Yeah, great point. And
Yeah.
I would say for this second film that it has a lot of great watchability back to back with the first, because they're both very dark films, and I just think like we've been saying, it takes off and the creative into what am I trying to say? The creative freedom they had by having a sequel that didn't have a lot of rules set out other than the first film. They could have taken it anywhere, and they did. I think is really interesting, but they kept it fairly dark, and I think it matches the tone of that first film. Now, I think when you watch the third film, which is such a fan favorite, I think there's an abrupt change in tone from the third film on, where it's like lighter, and that always kind of bothered me a little bit, even though I love those films. But this film, the second one and the first one, I think you can just watch them back to back and just in the same sitting, and it feels very natural. Yes, they changed the rules and it goes different places, but the tone is consistent.
Yeah, and you're bringing something up for me, which is, I mean, in the first one you have a protagonist that's female, and the focus is very much on her. It's very much on Nancy, and the second one it is too. But this shift that happens from Dream Warrior forward, the movie isn't so much about Freddy anymore. Whereas I feel like 1 and 2 are very like, who is Freddy? What is Freddy? And then
Yes.
from 3 onward, we're like, oh, we know what Freddy is, and now he can just be like a cartoon character, and it
Right.
focuses on like the badass female protagonist. You know, what's she gonna do to
And
battle
and
Freddy?
the teens.
And then we don't really get back to who is Freddy, what is Freddy until New Nightmare,
Right.
or even Freddy's dead. You get that. You get like who is
That's
he?
such a great, yes.
But there's this like
Yeah.
3, 4, and 5 are just like Freddy is just like the crazy guy
And
over here, you know?
right. And in some ways, who is Freddy? That's the most interesting subject matter, right? For me. So that's why I love those films. And you've brought me around a lot on this one. You
Yes.
have, and it is tied to my childhood too, just like you. It
There's
was the first film and this film were the only ones I had on VHS prior to like the DVD revolution that happened in the 90s.
that's awesome.
So prior to that, I owned these two films, this second one and the first one, on VHS.
Yeah.
So they're special to me just for that reason of being like the childhood memories. And then I finally got the box set of all the DVDs when that came out.
Yeah. I
But
miss
there was a time when films weren't as accessible.
right.
You couldn't just buy like a box set. You had to like rent them or like really go out of your way
Or
to like
take them when
get them or find them. Right.
yeah. And you
Yeah, which
oh sorry, go ahead.
which in some ways was more special, but some ways, I mean, we have it so easy now.
We do. Accessibility is a blessing and a curse. Like we don't there's no such thing as like anticipation. And I mean there is. It's like, oh, when is this gonna drop on Disney Plus? But it's like it's literally going to be delivered right into your living room. You don't have to get in your car and go pick it up. It's a different type of
Right.
situation. But you
Right.
you mentioned two things. Oh, and you own this, but like I so miss because I had to get rid of a lot of this stuff when I moved out to the Bay Area. But I remember buying when it first came out the 7 DVD box set of
Yeah.
everything plus New Nightmare, and it had that very textured cover of his face, and it came with the 3D
Mm-hmm.
looking glasses so you could watch parts
Yes.
properly. And I so miss having that DVD set. But also, it's a question that they bring up in Never Sleep Again, and I think it would be interesting to keep asking it each movie review that we do and at the end. But the question is, what does Freddy represent? Like, what did he represent in part 1? What does he represent in part 2? And then at the
Yeah.
end, you know, like, has it changed? Is it the same?
Yeah.
Because to me, I mean, to your point, like, that's the ultimate question. Like, who is Freddy? What is he?
Right.
What,
It's like the further along we get in the films, the further we get from answering that in any kind of meaningful way. It's like chasing a mirage in
yeah.
a way. Whereas if they would have plowed into it earlier in the film, you get to a place where you can no longer really go there. And because the films just take on a course of their own, and then it's about, all of a sudden it's about the teens, like the teen cast against Freddy.
Yeah.
Like you said, it morphs, and then there's no way to come back to it meaningfully or well. I mean, the further you get away from that original film, like I'm always saying about Alien, I wish they had made like an Alien 2
Right.
in 1980, the year after Alien, and just with a similar cast, because it would have been so true to the original. And it just would have been interesting to see.
Yeah.
But we had to wait like 6 years for Aliens to come out.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and then we got an action movie, an excellent action movie, but a completely different movie. And
Right.
it's just like
By that, because the more time that goes by, it's just gonna be more and more different. Like it's harder and harder to get back to the authenticity of what you are expanding upon.
yeah. And there's that one quote early on in the documentary Memory, which is about the making of Alien, which you introduced me to, where one of the gentlemen that's being interviewed, he's the same gentleman that was at that myth salon that you went to that my school put on. I can't think of his name, but
Yeah.
I'll find it and I'll put it below, but he was talking about how movies surface at the right time. Like it's a right place, right time, synchronicity. Things have to coalesce and come together in just the right way. A, to be a good movie, and B, to be a successful movie, and C, if you get like the trifecta, it's like it hits everybody the right way and it sticks in the cultural zeitgeist, like your Jaws, your Aliens, whatever it is, Citizen Kane, right? Um,
Right.
and I think like Nightmare on Elm Street, the 80s too, like the early 80s, you're in the Cold War. There's a whole lot of anti-authority, being skeptical of authority shit going on still. It's just interesting, the timing of things. Um, if if you were to, we know you couldn't tell this story today, right? If you were just like, hey,
Yeah.
here's a pedophile, but he's cool and you're gonna love him, it wouldn't work, right? It's not gonna.
Right. But they keep trying
Oh, they
to
do.
bring everything back, and that's why there's such diminishing returns on all of it, is exactly what we're hitting on, I think.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
just
it's easy to extract from existing IP, but you're up against all of these barriers that I think are unseen by a lot of developers and producers, on the Hollywood side, you know what I mean? Or not cared about maybe as much, you know what I mean? But I think everything we're hitting on just speaks to it being a lot more difficult to revive something like that in a really authentic and good way
yeah.
than what people think. Yeah.
And with Alien, with Jaws, those are just the two we've been talking about. So I'm gonna harken back to them because they are amazing and they are beautifully simple. Not simple in like a reductive, like dumb way, but it's, here's a great white shark. Simple premise, right? Executed
Right.
masterfully. Here's an alien
Yeah.
space. Simple premise, executed masterfully. And it's very hard, it feels like, for Hollywood to do that anymore. And
Mm.
we try and do too much of everything,
Yeah.
plot to stop. But the reason I'm saying that is because I'm looking at my shirt and I'm looking at your shirt and I'm thinking about the what does Freddy represent question, and his glove, his weapon. So he is a weapon, right? Like he penetrates your subconscious. He, of course, can physically penetrate you with these things too. But the simplicity of the weaponry too, right? Like, and he's
Right.
like, this is God. Like the simplicity of
Right.
like pure evil, just like it's never going to be explained. Just like the xenomorph, it's a perfect organism. Jaws, a great white, is the perfect killing machine. They're both
Yeah.
dumb animals. That's what's terrifying,
Yeah.
right? Is the simplicity that it doesn't have any motive, maybe even. It's just a killing machine. Like maybe
Yeah.
Freddy is just a fucking bad guy, and that's what's terrifying, is that we'll never know why. We'll never know why he did those things to those little kids.
Yeah.
This is pure evil, and the simplicity of that is what's terrifying, maybe.
Right. Like some mystery and intrigue is a really potent thing. And it's a vital ingredient in this mixture of these things that we love. And I think what made him cool too was his like anarchist nature. He's definitely like the rebel, the outsider, the anti-establishment, fuck society, like fuck your God, fuck all of it, and just do whatever the hell you want type of like rock star energy that he had. I just think is like, plus with the one-liners and like the fact that like, we like watching gore and stuff and he's delivering it. I think there's a lot of things that are never defined that make him cool. I never hear people talking about like why he got to that level of like universal appeal or coolness among like certain demographics. And
Yeah.
I think that those are some of the reasons, but
I mean, he is a rock star. He is a rock star. And he's also, he can be looked at as very simple, or like he's not simple, but what he represents is simple, which is pure evil, right? Like maybe some things are just evil, right? But him as a character, he's very self-aware. He knows he's a bad boy. He knows he's a fucking rock star, right? Like he's delivering you sarcastic, sardonic one-liners. He's clever, he's witty, you know, he knows he's charismatic, and he plays off of that as a character. So I just think that you don't, where else in horror do you get, you don't get that. Like Mike Myers and Jason Voorhees are brilliant
Right.
characters, but they're just robots, they're machines.
Yeah,
Freddy is like all personality,
definitely.
like pure
It's
evil with a personality, like.
And I think, like you were saying with Nightmare 2, they were exploring possession. They were exploring like all kinds of things. There's such more richness of like paths and choices you can make creatively with Freddy than any of the others that you mentioned. I feel like, which are very kind of boxed in and straightforward. And Freddy is like, well, he could do this, or like all of a sudden he could be doing all this, and um I think there's so much more freedom there creatively, which is so much more interesting to me. And the fact that he's so much more of a personality who talks and stuff is,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely amazing.
I think that's ultimately why in the mashup they chose Jason Voorhees over Michael Myers, because Michael Myers was, we know Michael Myers was a little boy and had trauma. Like we got to see Michael Myers be human and turn into Michael Myers, but like Jason was always in a like we never really, Jason is not, we know he's a human obviously, but Jason is so
Right.
removed from humanity because of what his mother did to him that he's always been the mask and the killing machine and the robot.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they, I think it was smart to pair Freddy with Jason, because you have this like great white shirt, you know, glazed over eyes
Yeah.
with the guy with the personality.
And
Mike Myers is more smart, and there's a man still
yeah,
in there.
I think with Jason and Mike Myers, you see a lot more of a formulaic thing happening throughout the franchise that is not deviated from in any creative or meaningful way. Whereas with Freddy, like you said, they just took all and went a totally different direction for number 2, and then skirt, like went a totally different direction for 3, and then maybe went along that direction for like 4 and 5 or whatever, and then went a totally different direction for New Nightmare, and you see them like zigzagging, which is way cooler and more interesting, I think.
Yeah. There's character development on Freddy's part, and yeah, you just don't see. I will give it
You
to.
don't see that kind of growth in the others. No.
I mean, the only exception to that, I think, is Rob Zombie's 2 iterations of Halloween. I think he really did a good job of like giving Michael Myers some like nuance and like a backstory, and like here's who he is. Um, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like there is only one Fred, there is only one Daddy, there is only one Robert
And
Englund.
you know what is so great about it is that I've thought about this a lot, about how he can play this role until he's like 80. Like he could literally play another, and not that I wish that upon him because that's a curse, but because he's done so much with it, God bless him. But you know, if we ever wanted to bring and do like a real remake and really bring it back proper, it's not something he's ever going to age out of, which is the
Right.
genius of it.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I just, oh, I love him.
I love it.
I
We both love Robert Englund equally, which I love.
and
I didn't tell you this, but I just got a big poster, original poster, like an OG poster of the Mangler, which is this incredible, you know, the Mangler with Robert Englund. Yes, so that's one of my favorite performances of him as well, and so that's hanging in another room, but I'll show you. I'll show you sometime. But I just love that movie so much, and I just think he's just such a great actor, and
He really is, and I'm so jealous that you've gotten to meet him and Heather multiple times. It's my like one of my goals to make it to a con before the end of the world and before
Let's do it. You need to do it on next year, like once this stuff lifts a little bit, and yeah,
I
I
just
want to see you do it.
I just love him so much. I've loved him since I was a little girl, and I have to give props where they're due. My mom is the one, God bless her and thank her for never censoring,
Linda Lou.
the one and only, for taking me to the movies when she went to the movies, and for teaching me that ketchup blood was ketchup and that Freddy wasn't going to get me. And it's because of that
Yeah.
I never stopped loving him, because I knew he was just make believe. And she always had such respect for Robert Englund too as an actor, and I have her to thank for my love affair of movies in general and for this franchise. And if it weren't for her, I would not maybe possibly be sitting here with you having all of this fun and geeking out. But I just Robert Englund, man.
Linda has some good taste.
She does.
My parents were not cool, so they weren't into anything in the arts. Like they just weren't into movies or the arts. I mean, my dad liked movies a lot, so I could watch stuff with him, and he was really cool in that area. Like he loved Alien and all that stuff so much. But yeah, a lot of this stuff I had to seek out on my own, and it wasn't cool like among any groups of people at my school. So I always felt like, it wasn't until I got older and went to cons and we became friends, and I met my true friends that you meet when you get a little bit older, that you discover people that are into the same things, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's so cool about your mom though.
Yeah, and it's I did know that about your dad. It's awesome that he loves Alien and that you get to enjoy that with him. And
Yeah.
it's
My dad and I saw In the Mouth of Madness in the movie theater together. That's like my memory of my dad that I'll never forget, is him taking me to see that, and how much I love that movie. And that's such a great Lovecraftian John Carpenter film. But yeah, we watched all the Freddy movies together too, and he would be my movie person, my movie parent. My
what
mom could not watch any of this stuff.
what's your dad's name?
Al.
Al. Shout outs to
Yeah.
Al. Yeah.
Big up, Al. Big up in heaven, Al.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I was always the person that knew too much about movies and always brought up movies, and everyone was like, "Stop talking about movies. Like, we don't know what you're talking about." And now I'm like, ha 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 ha, I'm getting a fucking degree in it, and everybody I know is like about that life. And also, it's very apparent in 2020 and will become more apparent, in my opinion, moving forward. And this isn't just to like shout myself out, but it's pop culture cannot be separated from culture. And
Right.
pop culture can be, and more often than not, is high art if you know what you're looking for.
Oh,
And
for sure.
I think more and more people are realizing that, thankfully. But yeah, I think Freddy Krueger is a perfect example of what you can do with
Yeah.
character art and what you can do
Yes.
with, again, like what you can do to show the worst of us and the best of us, and like what
Right.
happens when you don't know where the two intertwine and how to separate them. You have
Yes.
pure love, pure fandom, pure adoration for this charismatic, witty, sexy, funny, smart, innovative character who is also representative of the worst thing anybody can imagine.
Yeah, I think of him as like a cultural experiment, because he became such a pop culture figure that it is like this experiment playing out on this much much higher level than any like little focus group, right? It's this huge blown up version of a focus group or a cultural experiment, basically. But it's very interesting. I love that they are self-referential with it in New Nightmare when Heather goes on a talk show and he bursts out, claws his way out through the wall, and you just see her reaction. Like, she's such a great actress. I love Heather Langenkamp too. But you see her like in that moment of being like not as popular as him, and also like him playing to the crowd and the crowd going wild to him, and him becoming this pop culture figure, like an Andy Warhol or something like crazy, like he literally a piece of pop culture art,
Yeah.
that like everybody wants to get at or be or have a part of or something.
Yes.
And it really was crazy, like the fandom over Freddy. And I think the fact that they reference that and the stuff you see when they go to Wes Craven's house and you see like the memorabilia on the shelves and stuff, it's all so smart and really cool. Yeah.
I can't wait till we get to New Nightmare. I cannot wait.
Yes, Wes Craven's genius. He's an intellectual, and he is a really great force in film, I think, in this genre, in elevating it in different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did meta so well between
Yeah.
New Nightmare and Scream, to be that
Yeah.
self-aware, and not just to be that self-aware, but to execute it so well to where it's not easy, and to where even Scream, which is your meta take on your entire body of work and other people's bodies of work, still will stand up to the test of time. You know what I mean? Like, that's how. Like,
Definitely.
Just Ridley Scott. I'm sorry, Ridley Scott.
Yeah, no, and
Ridley Scott is not nailing it right now. Okay.
no,
But
what's interesting about Wes Craven's work in the 90s is I think he was like a real trailblazer there. I mean, because that became so par for the course after he was doing it. But I think he was like an innovator in that area, right? Because people weren't doing that kind of meta stuff. And then in horror, he reinvented horror with Scream.
yeah,
Like horror movies were not doing that whole like wink and nod at you
not at all.
as you watched. It was like night and day before and after Scream.
It was
And like I think,
not
you
just
know,
horror, for movies in general. I mean, you see it in other genres. Comedies were starting to do it. Like, there was more breaking of the fourth wall. I mean, even it went
right?
fucking Disney now can't make a movie without winking and nodding. They're
Yeah,
everything is like a joke to the like. There's always something,
yeah,
and he
yeah. But
yeah
horror at that time had like almost like died, and it was in such dire straits, and he really like revived it with that. You know what I mean? Which is so amazing. But
if you
I didn't even.
like Halloween H2O compared to Scream, it's like take several seats. Like, you are not doing the whole reviving the genre thing well at all. We love you.
I didn't think that was too bad. There's a lot of bad Halloween movies.
Oh,
There's like a lot of bad ones. But yeah, I think 1 through 3 are really interesting. And then
Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie, I'm sorry. That man,
yeah.
love that man.
Well, those are very controversial films too. I mean, they're very they divide audiences big time. I don't think they're overwhelmingly like popular. Why is that? I don't know. Yeah, and I like the backstory stuff. I think they're interesting. I like them, but I know a lot of fans were up in arms and took issue. But yeah, anyway. But we're getting off track.
Fred. Yeah, so I'm really excited for part 3 because I know it's your favorite. I know it's most people's favorite.
It's not my favorite.
Wait, I thought Dream Warriors was your favorite.
Hell no. It's probably one of my least favorites, but I like things about it. But I think it's a fan favorite across the board.
Dream Warriors. Oh, sorry. Dream Warriors is not with Patricia Arquette.
It is. Yes, it is. But here's the thing.
Wait,
It
what's your
is like,
favorite?
it's a lot of people's favorite. It is, but it's not my favorite.
What's yours? I thought it was three.
My favorite is probably the first film. And then after that, I would probably say New Nightmare. New Nightmare and the very first film are my favorites for various reasons.
Okay,
Yes.
I knew New Nightmare, and of course I'm going to give you the first one. But in terms of the sequels, why did I think three?
I don't know, but we've talked a lot about three, about how popular it is in the fandom.
I'll
So
edit that.
that's probably where that came from.
Okay, but yeah,
No, it's not.
five,
Yeah, but I love all of them, but my favorites are number one and New Nightmare.
New Nightmare is amazing. Yeah,
Yes. How amazing does Heather Langenkamp look in New Nightmare?
like she
She's
did.
like she's like a superstar in that movie, big time.
That was one of the most visceral movie going memories I have too. Is we did my I think I may have mentioned this in the last movie hour, but my mom and her friends went to see. I went along with them. Obviously, it was 1994, and it was a double.
Yes.
It was opening night, and it was Pulp Fiction, and then we saw New Nightmare, and it was. Can you imagine
Wow.
two movies
Great
that
movies.
good right now? Mm.
Great movies. You don't get it like that now. You don't get it like that.
Right.
No. And let me tell you, New Nightmare was the first one I saw in theaters, but I should save some of that for when we get there. But that was the first one, yeah,
Well, I'm
that I saw.
excited for part three. I'm excited to unpack it. I know it's
Me
not
too.
my favorite, but it's everybody else's favorite apparently. It's
Yeah.
Patricia Arquette's debut. We love Patricia. Um, we love
They bring back Nancy.
they brought back Nancy. Um, yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good movie, but y'all don't sleep on part two. Give it a second watch and rinse and repeat. It's fucking good. A lot going on. Thank you again to David. David, what's your name? David Chaskin. We love you. Sir, you're doing the most, and I appreciate it. Yeah, any closing remarks on Freddy's Revenge?
Not really. The director seemed a little like out of it, didn't he? Like he didn't really know what was going on. I like that you shouted out David, the writer, because really I think it's more like his film, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that director was just kind of like whatever.
I think it's really important too, and we can all thank Chad for this. I think it's really important too, if you don't like part two, that you watch Never Sleep Again, the documentary, and rewatch part two, because it not only like illuminates the entire franchise, but it really sheds light on like how part two came to be and the things that went right and the things that went wrong. But
right.
I'm gonna advocate for part two to the end.
I just want to say the director's follow-up film to this film was a movie called The Hidden in 1987, starring Kyle MacLachlan. And this is a film that looks really, really good and has been on my radar and my list of like must-see films during quarantine. It's just it's one of those films that's never streaming anywhere, so you have to rent it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pay for it and rent it soon because I'm dying to see it. If you've not heard of it, give it a look up. But it's The Hidden from 1987, so it looks like a pretty good film.
I'll watch it too. Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan was like the 80s, like wunderkind. He was doing the most. Yeah, I just thank you to the cast and crew of Freddy's Revenge. I appreciate you very much. And I don't know what else. Oh, the tagline for the movie was "The man of your dreams is back." That was what was on the movie poster, and I love that because he's the man of my dreams.
See, I remember the VHS cover more than the movie poster because it was a little different. They didn't use the movie poster for the VHS. It was more like him in flames.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking it up to see if it had a tagline on it or not.
I
I
don't.
know we're wrapping it up, but
I remember the
it
VFX.
it does have a tagline. It says, oh no, it doesn't. It just has reviews and stuff. But yeah, I just remember him on the VHS cover, like peering out, like the cover's ripped, and he's like clawing, coming out of it, and with flames behind him. I don't know why. I just remember that so well, but
Because it's amazing.
yeah, it is.
Man of our dreams.
Freddy's Revenge.
We love him. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Always like and subscribe and comment. We'll be back with Dream Warrior soon. Not Chad's favorite, and the rest of the franchise. So with that, we will literally see you on the other side. Cheers.
Mwah.